shelters, 6 winter respite programs, and working with dozens of community agencies and organizations to help us operate this system, this large, complex system. We do have a central intake mechanism that interviews people for shelter so that we can provide the right service to each individual. Our outreach services are very responsive and continue 24 hours a day through the extreme cold weather alerts. They have been present recently at the Moss Park site and are transporting people who require shelter from that site. In the past 14 months, we've seen a 30% increase in demand. So we've responded to this by adding 1,400 beds to the system. Council recently approved 400 new spaces in early December. Approximately half of those spaces are open now, and an example of this would be the Better Living Center, which has 110 spaces available every day and every night. It is important to note that the City of Toronto provides more service per capita than any other municipality in the country. That being said, we have a growing population and we do have a growing need. In 2018, as part of our shelter infrastructure plan, we will be opening 290 shelter beds. As well, at the last council meeting in December, council has authorized an additional 3 shelters to be opened in 2018. This is all part of a plan to improve occupancy. As I look back at the available data, we have never been able to achieve our target of 90% occupancy. Of course, we are very concerned about our homeless clients, particularly during this extreme cold weather. This is a complex system, and I know our staff are doing their best under a difficult circumstance. One thing, though, that I'm very concerned about are the recent reports regarding communication within the system. Information needs to be accurate and reflect real-time situations. I've requested a full review of our communication service and intake process that should begin immediately. I've also been speaking with the City Ombudsman to discuss this issue and work with her on this issue. And now I'd be happy to take any of your questions.
Was the recording from was the audio recording that was released today from last night, was it with a central intake employee? Can you verify?
The recording from last night, was it with a central intake employee?
Yeah, like a city staffer.
Yes, it appears to be with the city staffer.
Okay.
Can you explain how the system works in the sense that I think a lot of people know that they can make reservations for hotels or restaurant tables on their phone. Why is it that the City of Toronto can't seem to figure out where the beds are available when someone calls?
Great question. So over many years, we've built a very complex system of 62 shelters. 10 of those shelters are operated by the City of Toronto. 52 of those shelters are operated by community partners. All of these different 62 locations are interacting at any given time. We created a central process to try and deal with that interaction. Added on top of that, you have your winter respite programs and other drop-in programs in the city. So it's very dynamic. There's people communicating back and forth all the time. And if you think about a hospital bed, so a hospital bed gets taken up, the patient leaves, a hospital bed is open, and there's a process to try and fill that bed. It's similar in the shelter system. A shelter bed may come open. It may have been full when we look to see, okay, is this shelter bed open right now? It's full right now. 2 hours later, it might be open. So the central process at Peter Street is for our staff to be looking in real time, what is the need of the specific client who arrives, and where can we address that need, whether it's for a woman or a single man or a couple or a family.
But is that system broken if people are saying they're being turned away and then the city says, no, there were spaces there?
I think there's no question that we have to review the system that we have in place. I think we need to improve upon that. We need to look at technology to help us with that real-time communication, and we need to investigate and look into the processes and protocols that we have in place to do that.
When you talk about that review, though, we just had the coldest New Year's Eve in the city in over 50 years. Can something be done immediately, or is that review going to take time?
So what we're doing immediately is we are having our street outreach teams go out to try and find and talk to any individual who is on the street, including the Moss Park site at the Safe Injection site, and offer them services to come in and actually take them directly to service. I have my staff directly speaking to both Peter Street and Central Intake around improving our consistent messages at both of those locations, and talking broadly amongst the shelter network, how can we make sure that we improve that communication. So we're doing those things now, but the longer term goal is to improve the system with technology and processes to really improve that. That will take a little bit of time.
The man who made the recording says that the city's actually gaming the system when it comes to numbers. He said that people are being told there are no beds, but then after, say, 11 o'clock when people find alternate places to live, the city opens up beds, so in the morning they can tell us that there were beds available. Do you believe that's the case?
So that is not the case. For consistency, we always look at what are the available beds at 4 a.m. This allows the 62 shelters and the respites, the staff who are working there are taking care of people, filling beds, cleaning rooms, making sure that people are taken care of. When there is a dip in service there, they are able to reconcile the numbers that they have and say, okay, here's the numbers now that we have available to us. Those are the numbers that they report to us at 4 a.m. And then we look at that through the day and we move to the next day. So there's no intentional gaming of the system there to have people go somewhere else at all. But it's very dynamic, so those beds fill and become empty regularly through the 24-hour period. It's reconciled at one time of the day every day so that we can have that view, that picture. We would like to, with technology and a full review of the system, look at how can we improve upon that reporting and make that reporting better in real time.
How often
Every winter, there's always an ongoing debate about opening the armories, and especially when we're seeing record-breaking lows and so many people still out on the streets, and seems to be this lack of communication or with the data, whether places are open or not. Is that something that the city is talking about, that they're discussing, the potential of opening the armories?
So we are considering all of our options, and we have always said that the armories is one of those options that we would consider. Back in July, when we were planning for this winter, we had a plan authorized by council to open up 5 winter respite sites. We identified those 5 sites as city staff, and we opened those. At our last council meeting, we were asked to open a 6th site. The Better Living Center was an excellent site for us to open. The city owns that facility. It's very flexible. Great access to transit, and you can expand and contract it well, so we chose that site. Should we choose to open additional sites going forward, we would absolutely look at every option on the table, including the armories, as we always have.
Have there been any more conversations with the federal government on that? Do you need their permission to open the armories?
So we do have our real estate staff reaching out to staff regarding the armories.
Where is Mayor Tory? Is he in the city?
I have no.
Communicated with any key managers on this file saying?
Oh, absolutely. So I've spoken with the mayor personally, and actually I have a meeting with him later today. So, but I don't know what. Yes, but I don't know what the mayor's schedule is. That's not something I would know.
How often are the numbers from the shelters communicated to Central Intake? How frequently?
So Central Intake reaches out at that time to look at what's available.
So it's once a day?
Once a day, there is centralized reporting. Peter Street and Central Intake reach out to look and see what's available in real time as they're doing that.
A lot of people seem to think armories is a quick fix solution. You just open the doors to armories and it'll solve lots of problems. But the mayor spoke on this before, and I know you've spoken on this before. Can you just reiterate what is the issue there? Why it's not the obvious solution that a lot of people seem to think it is?
So as I had just mentioned, the armories is always an option. The city has used the armories in the past. The last time it was used was in 2004. When you look at these sites, you look at immediate availability, you look at the facility itself, you look at are you competing with other workforces at those facilities? So when you look at the armories, the city doesn't own it, so we have to do some work to actually get a hold of that. It's an active military facility, so there's things going on there that you would have to change. You can have mixing of clients and that workforce, so that could be a challenge, or it is a challenge given our experience in the past. All of that said, and the cost in 2004 was very expensive. All of those things said, it remains an option. When we were looking at the things to do, and we looked at the 6th site, the Better Living Center was available. It's city-owned. It's very flexible. We're not competing with a workforce there. It's right on transit. So it was just a really good site. It's not that we are saying we're never going to use the armories. We just look at the list of options, and then we prioritize that list based on the number of sites that we're opening.
Thank you, Paul. Any final questions?
At this point, we're expecting to remain in an extreme cold weather alert at least through the end of the first week of January. So at this point, with all of these updates and suggestions, what is the city going to do in real time now, leading into the next 24, 48 hours?
So we continue to operate the way that we do. The 62 shelters are going to continue to operate. The 6 winter respite sites are going to continue to operate. We will have staff out on the street 24 hours a day during the extreme cold weather, checking in on any individual that they find that is living on the street and really encouraging them to come in out of the cold, taking them directly to one of these sites, so that they can get in. Sometimes people choose, and in fact, the majority of the time, they choose not to accept that service. Some people do choose to stay on the street. We will continue to focus on trying to get people off of the street. The other thing is we have a 60-bed shelter opening up in the next 7 to 10 days, the new Hope Shelter in Leslieville. That will be very helpful. That will be run by the Salvation Army, and we will be looking to fill those shelter beds immediately. I had mentioned the 290 beds that we're bringing online this year as part of our infrastructure plan, and also the 3 shelters that City Council authorized in December for us to try and fast track and move 3 new shelters on top of all of those other things in 2018. So we are very aggressively moving forward to increase capacity and service in the system, and we will continue to do that.
Great. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much.